Greetings, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another interesting video today. And today I would like to talk a little bit about gun laws and gun policies. And I suppose that many of you, especially Swedish people, know what happened in Örebrö. There was a mass shooting on the 4th of February, if I remember correctly, in the beginning of February for sure. And unfortunately, 10, 11, 12 people died. Don't know the exact number in my head. And very tragic and very upsetting. And there was a moment of silence in Sweden the week after that across the whole country. And it just raised a couple of questions / thoughts about what kind of gun policies should we have, what kind of rules, or what is the deal, like what's the matter with guns, why are people against gun laws, why are people for easier access to buying guns, let's say, and so on and so forth. And I figured let's maybe talk about that a little bit, and I might share some opinions and thoughts about that. And I think I'll use the United States as one example. Perhaps it's one of the easiest or best examples because there's a lot of studies on that, a lot of cases and all these things compared to Europe. And then I'll maybe get back a little bit to Europe towards the end of the video. So I think I'll start off by saying, for example, in the US, each state decides what kind of gun policies they want. It's a federalist state. Each state has their own gun rules, their laws, policies, and so on and so forth, based on how many guns you can buy, how much ammunition, and so on and so forth. And the first question or the first remark that people make oftentimes, especially in the media and all these things, is let's ban guns, let's ban this, let's ban that. Okay, that's perhaps like, whenever something happens, when there's an accident or something, depending on what, of course, let's remove this, let's not do this, So it's the first reaction is essentially understandable. I understand when people say let's ban guns. Okay, let's actually ban guns. Let's take a look at some states like Chicago or California, any other particular states that have one of the highest gun shooting crimes, let's say. There they have the strictest gun laws, they have very strict policies on that, and yet somehow there are a lot of shootings, there are a lot of gun cases, and so on and so forth. So why is that? Compared to Texas, Florida, let's say more Republican states where people love to buy guns, for some reason there's a bit less of a shooting, less incidents such as that, and so on. So why is that? I think the first remark or the first answer to that is perhaps because the criminals do not follow the orders. The criminals don't follow the law. They do not abide to them. And so it doesn't matter. You can restrict gun policies, you can restrict whatever you want. Good citizens are going to follow the law and order. The criminals and bandits are not going to follow order and law. So that basically should give you a hint that, okay, maybe banning guns is not the exact ideal solution to things. And besides, it's not really the gun itself that is the problem, but who has the gun, who is in control of the weapon. And most of the time, it's the bandits, the criminals, the psychopaths, the mentally ill people who somehow get access to the gun. Now then you can say, well, if we grant the citizens more easier access to guns, then the more mentally ill people can get it, and the bandits can get it, and the criminals can get it. This is where it becomes a slippery slope case and very grayish area, let's say. It's the gun laws, it's kind of like abortion, I feel like, in some ways. It's never gonna be yes or no, or one or the other, but rather you gotta find something in the middle. And the same thing with guns. But if we take a look at, for example, Texas or Florida, when you assume, let's say, that everyone has a gun, I think 1 in 2 people have a gun in the US, if not maybe more. And some people have more than one weapon. Usually it's like 2 or 3 guns or whatever. And when you assume that everyone has a gun, basically, you as a criminal, as a potential criminal or bandit, you are gonna probably think twice a little bit, because you might get shot right on the spot if you try to do any stupid like that. As to compare to a place like Chicago, where you know that not many people have gun access or own guns, it's a bit easier for them to get things in control as a bandit or a criminal and shooting people basically. And yes, I agree with the fact that you should have stricter background controls, you should have mental checkups, you should have health checkups, and all these things. The problem is essentially, or what my potential solution to that could be, is something what I actually admire about Switzerland, or I admire about, let's say, Europe in general, although in recent times we've had a bit more gun violence, and unfortunately, but that's a little bit of a different reason, let's say. But the reason why I take Europe more as a better example here is because, first of all, we're more, let's say, everyone is well trained with weapons, because we have mandatory military service, for example, and there's a bit better education on that. People focus more on the mental health here, I feel like, as compared to the US. I feel like it's a bit more of a calmer sphere in Europe rather than US. I feel like US in general is just everything very extreme, starting with cars, ending with food and with guns. It's like either you have a big ass burger, or you have a tiny burger, or you have a big ass car, you have a very tiny car, or you're extremely left or you're extremely right. Big roads, small roads, kind of just everything's a little bit wild in my opinion. Europe is a little bit more modern, a little bit more moderate, and a little bit calmer. That's my personal impression. So I feel like it's also the same with guns. People are a little bit more chill with the guns. Europeans are a little bit more educated on that, I feel like. And yes, American education is crap. I'm gonna say that directly. It is what it is. US, the education system not the greatest there. However, again, they have one of the best universities, so it's also kind of like very extreme. You have Harvard University and Yale, and then you have like shitty K through 12 program systems. It's wild. US is one particular unique country, I have to say. So going back to the gun laws, it's basically, my approach would be, if I were to live in the US, or in that case for Sweden. As for Sweden, I don't think you need any drastic gun law changes, in my opinion, because I feel like, in my impression, also being in Sweden just recently, I haven't really felt like I was in super danger, or I was, no one was looking suspicious. I haven't seen any gun crimes, thank God, in Sweden. And yes, it's very unfortunate that there was a guy, a mentally ill guy, or politically motivated, or whatever the case may be, decided to shoot certain people at this particular school. Very unfortunate. But I don't think it's I think Sweden already has good gun laws, in my opinion. I don't think you need to break down on that or go further than you need to in some ways. And I think those guns that he had were hunting weapons, if I remember, licensed, I think, even. So yeah, and that's, in general, it's less of a problem in Europe as to compare to the United States, for example. Although I have to say now that in recent times, because we've had a lot of open borders in Europe, we also allowed more guns in, we also allowed more criminals in, who are among those refugees or immigrants whatsoever. And no, I'm not labeling every immigrant as a criminal, but among them, there are some criminals who come into country. You have to acknowledge that as well. And also to maybe respond to some of the comments that I've received on the video of immigration. No, I'm not a racist, and no, I'm not against immigrants per se, and no, I do not support any extremist right-wing parties either. I'm just talking about rational situations here, and also just being honest and direct about it, because we cannot hide under the blanket for much longer. and closing our eyes like this, pretending that everything's fine as well. So I think some things you have to address the situation as it is. You're gonna name the thing in itself, and that's about it. So please feel free to comment back if you want. I mean, yeah, you're not really gonna get far with that by calling me a racist or whatever you want to call me, essentially. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't really care less, honestly. I'm just sharing my opinion. If you want to have a debate or a rational conversation with me, please feel free. Absolutely. You can even direct message me privately if you want. If not, then not. I mean, it's up to you if you want to waste your time on me or not. If I want to waste your time on you, but yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. So the point being here is that gun laws, in my personal opinion and in my personal observation, it's perhaps better to focus more on the mental health, on the education, and the overall, let's say, approach to guns, rather than just banning the gun. Or the same thing with knives. We have to ban knives like in the UK. It's like, just because we had more stabbings in the UK doesn't mean now you have to ban knives. It's like you're just putting a bandage on a big wound, let's say, kind of like that. I think there are better approaches to that, and you are not hitting the direct source of the problem, the root cause of the problem, but rather just kind of patching something on the surface and then saying, oh, well, we were working towards it. It was, that was our initiative, let's say, but somehow it didn't work. Yeah, I wonder why. So I think overall, there are much more rational approaches to solving gun and knife violence problems, and I hope perhaps you understand that, or if you have a different point of view, please feel free to share them, and I'll always be happy to respond in a calm and rational way. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Hope you have a wonderful day.